Hi everyone, and I'm sure more people will be joining us, but welcome to our Facebook Live with Susan Thompson. We're going to be talking about healing imagery today, which is which is a course that Susan teaches here at the center. But I'll let her talk more about that. I'll just introduce myself. Again, I'm Kendall, and I'm the communications assistant at the Center for Spirituality and Healing. I'm just our host. I'll be asking all the questions, and then if anyone in the audience has any questions, we can take those at the end. So to start off, Susan, will you just tell me what your role at the center is?
Yeah, so I am part of the teaching faculty. I've been teaching the healing imagery course for 4 years, and I teach twice a year online and then once a year for the past 4 years in Hawaii when they have that program in January.
Okay, cool. So can you tell me a little bit more about the the course that you teach, healing imagery?
Yeah, absolutely. So the healing imagery course is, in that course, our students explore the power of our imagination and how we can harness that for healing and just overall well-being. So imagery is a sensory way of thinking and kind of the natural language of our subconscious mind. And Leslie Davenport, so she's somebody I consider really a luminary and a pioneer in that field of getting imagery into the medical mainstream. She calls it the Rosetta Stone of the body, mind, and spirit. And so in that sense, imagery emerges into our consciousness in dreams and daydreams and visions and art and poetry and music and just kind of the words we use. But we can learn to use it on purpose to solve problems and to stimulate healing. And the practice of imagery can really be thought of as sort of a form of deep listening to our innermost being. And so that's what the course is about. And in general, most of us give an awful lot of attention to our conscious mind and our inner narrative that describes our perspective of the world. And we live in that space oftentimes. But then we quickly forget that there are other parts of us that exist, and we are so much more than our conscious mind and what it thinks. And so we're characterized by our feelings and our intuition and our goals and values and beliefs, all of which are experienced through imagery.
Yeah.
And so, and we all experience imagery in our own unique way through our memories, our dreams, our wishes, our hopes, and our fears. So the course goes much deeper into that and how we can access our imagination and what those tools are that we use to do that, such as guided imagery. And in fact, oftentimes people call the course guided imagery, which is a little limiting because it's not only guided imagery that we're looking at, but that's one of the tools. It's one of the primary tools that we talk about a lot in the course. And we do spend a lot of time on that. And we also, the final project is based on that as well. But there are so many other tools that we use in there, and we cover things like expressive art. That would include things like mandalas and music and drumming, and expressive writing is something that we're working on in this last week. And those are some other examples.
Cool. So what, I guess I was going to ask too, who can take this course? Like undergraduates, graduates?
Yeah, it is a graduate course, and it's a 2-credit course. And I believe that if you look, when you're signing up, it will say you need permission if you have to be in a health profession. But I have some undergraduates in the course. And sometimes I get people that are not related at all to any kind of health profession. Like I had a student one time that was in design, and she found it really valuable and a way of thinking. And so it doesn't have to be that narrow, but it was designed to be, it's intended for that. So a lot of times I'm speaking to, in terms of being a health professional or a coach or, somebody that might be working with people.
So how does imagery work?
This comes from Belle Ruth Nappersteck. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but she's another luminary, and we use one of her textbooks, that one of her books that was, I think it was from the 90s, and it's so appropriate still to use that. But so in her work, she bases it on 3 principles that on how it works. First, that the mind-body connection, that our bodies can't discern, or our minds can't discern if they're real or not, or in things that happen in our imagination. So here's an example, and this is something that we do when I am in those initial days of learning about guided imagery and imagery in general. And you don't have to believe in this or any, it's nothing like that at all. It's just, if I were to tell you, just imagine right now that you had a lemon, and I'd asked you to pick up a lemon and put it into your hand and think about what that lemon feels like. Think about just what the skin feels like. Is it cool to the touch? Is there a little give to it? And there's maybe a smell of the outside of the lemon. And then I say, now put it on a counter right in front of you. And then imagine now that you're going to take a knife, and this is all in your imagination. You take a knife and you're going to slice into that lemon, and you kind of feel like a little give to it. You might see some of a little mist from the essential oils that are released, and a little dribble of the juice. And I say, I invite you in your imagination to cut that into quarters. And I do it a little bit longer than we're doing now, but then you take one of those quarters and you put it up into your mouth and taste the sourness of that lemon. Most of the time, your body responds. You're salivating. Even when I describe it, you start to salivate. Well, there's no lemon there. Your body's just reacting to, it doesn't know that it's not there. So it can't always discern that. Or another example is like waking up from a bad dream. And when that's happened and your heart is racing, well, you were just in your bed. You didn't really fall. You might have cried out like you fell, but your body responds to it. So we can imagine the worst, and our body will respond to that, and the stress related to it. So imaginary events cause our physiology to change. So we can imagine wonderful things like a relaxing place or our favorite memory, and our body will experience the positive emotions that surround that. So that can be really harnessed for healing. The second principle is that in a state of relaxed focus, we have a greater capacity for intense healing and growth and learning. And so that's number 2. The third is we feel better when there's a sense of mastery over what is happening to us. And this is a tool we can use. It gives us that sense of and it couldn't be more clear now how little control we really do have most of the time, and even more so now. But even that in itself, having a sense of that mastery, can change the way we feel in our experience.
Yeah. So, and I guess you kind of gave an example a bit in that last one, but I don't know if you want to give another example maybe of a type of imagery.
Yeah. There are multiple
Right.
types of imagery. And so one of the most common types that I tend to use this most often, and it's called feeling state imagery. And feeling state imagery is intended to help people change their mood in a more generalized way. So it can be done by imagining a favorite place, and I kind of hinted at that a moment ago, or a happy, peaceful time. And it can help people become relaxed and feel less anxious. So that's a really good one to use for feeling anxiety. And the more it's practiced, the more naturally one can get into that state, and it just becomes we can sort of build pathways to getting to that. So in fact, I was just in the last day, I've been working on one to record and post for students, but also to have for others who are interested in just in this time in particular, just taking 10 minutes and feeling that sense of relaxation and calm. Another type of imagery is called end state. And a lot of people will be familiar with that because it focuses on a situation or a circumstance that you wish for. So it could be, if in healthcare, it could be a cancer-free body, or if somebody's really tense and has tense muscles, it could be looser, less bound up and painful muscles. Or it could be in sports. That's where it's so commonly used in sports imagery, like a perfectly played game of tennis. You could do that. Or a lot of performers use that as well. So you can imagine a flawless performance for that. And then another fairly common, I think, that people will resonate with this is called metaphoric imagery, and where we can use symbols to envision healing. So let's say somebody needed to get radiation, and they imagined sunshine for that radiation, and it's such that the warmth and healing, that's a very different thought than what is happening in radiation. And so I had a friend who used Superman, a power figure, and he was getting chemotherapy, and he literally put on a shirt that had Superman on it, and when he would go in to get his chemotherapy, he imagined what was happening, and it was in that context that he was imagining his healing, and that it was getting right to the cells that needed to be attacked. And so that's another form of that. And then one thing I want to mention that's pretty important in the whole context of what imagery is that imagery uses all the senses. So sometimes you'll hear someone use the word visualize, and I'll find myself doing that too. I think that's just a common term that we use, and that implies that it's just your eyes. Like, just imagine with your eyes. Well, it's so much more powerful when it includes all the senses. So like the lemon, feeling it with your hand, the smell, the taste, it's much more encompassing when it includes all of those, all of the senses. And so I wanted to clarify that.
Cool. I guess I'm wondering, what is the research behind all of this?
So there's probably about 40 years of research that's been done under the whole context of mind-body medicine, thousands of different research that's out there for that, but about 40 years for imagery in particular, and for a wide variety of conditions. And some of the areas are symptom management for cancer, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, pain and anxiety are really top there. Surgery, in fact, there is really compelling research about surgery, and in that there's less blood loss, there is less use of narcotics following surgery, shorter length of stay, and that research is enough to have some of these health maintenance organizations, or other like Aetna and some of the Blues, actually have that as part of what their members are receiving before they have surgery, because in their mind, you're going to save money. You don't have somebody with as many complications. Some other areas are immune system disorders, hypertension, PTSD. So a number of areas.
Yeah. So you're a nurse, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
So how do you use imagery in your nursing practice?
So in the context of what I do right now, I'm not in a hospital or clinic setting. So I do have some coaching situations where I'm in and coaching, so I can do that as a one-on-one with somebody, where I could literally guide somebody in an experience like that. I would say more often I'm using it by creating a script and recording it. And sometimes even I received calls that were more urgent from somebody, a friend of somebody who knew somebody who really is just like, they're at the end, they've tried all this medication and this is what's happening. And is there any way you could just record something? So you can even customize things. One I've done it was very severe OCD, and anxiety. And so it was just a 10-minute something to just, in that moment, you could put it on your phone, push play and listen to it, and kind of bring you out of that state to the degree that you could at that moment. Also, I've worked on some for self-esteem. Somebody was having a lot of confidence and self-esteem issues. So I would say it's definitely a go-to thing for me, and I use it for myself. I mean, this is why I ended up studying this in my DNP, and this is something that is just a go-to. It's just so accessible and easy to use and powerful.
So who can this, I mean, I'm starting to kind of know the answer to this, but who can this be helpful for?
Well, really, almost anyone can use this. And so women and children tend to have a slight natural advantage just because but in general, imagery skips the barriers of education and race and class and gender. And so almost anyone can use it. It can be used in acute care settings. It can be used in community settings, for self-care. One note on safety I just want to mention is it's never intended to be used as a standalone treatment for something. I would never encourage somebody to say, oh, well, just try this instead of getting medical care for something. It's used in conjunction with that. And so you wouldn't want to avoid medical care for that, but it can be very powerful and used adjunctively with that. So really, almost anyone. One thing to keep in mind, if somebody has any kind of trouble with reality or understanding reality, or maybe they've had a very severe traumatic experience, that's one situation I would encourage that they work with a licensed therapist or provider who understands what kind of strong feelings and emotions can come from that experience.
How can people like access this type of healing?
So that's the really easy part too, is that this isn't, although in the course we learn how to administer this or be a guide for people, there are so many ways that you can. An online site called Health Journeys that has some you can purchase. There are CDs if you have access to doing CDs. I know it's kind of hard to find how to play CDs anymore, but CDs, they have them at the library. There are a number of apps that can be used. There's YouTube. One of the apps, one of my favorite, is Insight Timer, and so there are people that are doing guided imagery right on there, and they have lots and lots of options. So many ways of and streaming. So even looking that up, if you go on to Spotify or what are some of the other streaming, even Amazon. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's very helpful. I think those are all of my questions, but I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up. And if you don't, that's
Well,
fine.
I think, yeah, no, I encourage people, if they have any interest. I mean, the class is really fun. I think that what I find is students are surprised at how much in depth that we go into and how much fun we can have with learning about all of these other tools. I'm focusing a lot by saying, the apps and these other things are focused on more of a guiding in that way, but we can be guided in a different way through even music. Music alone, it doesn't have to be a voice saying anything, but it can be music can change the way we're feeling in any moment. And so one of the exercises, just as a quick example, 1 week we spend on music and learning about that, and the students listen to, I have maybe 6 or 7 pieces that last a few minutes, and then after you listen to the piece, you journal what you felt like. And when you take the time to do that, that's uninterrupted, and you really are just saying, I'm going to experience this and lie there and really allow that to happen, it's amazing what comes out of that. And the whole intention for it is I have some music that's like da, you know, that really kind of is more jarring, and some people find that exhilarating and some people find it scary, and so there's so many responses to it. You know, that's how we're so unique in all of that. But so that's just, I want to mention, you know, there are just so many things that we dive into that are really interesting and kind of open up a lot of doors and windows to the capacity for our healing using this tool, this modality.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
And just before you go,
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everyone know that this will stay up through the rest of the day, and then we're gonna try to figure out a way to like keep it, although I'm still working on that. Also, we have a number of events coming up at the center. So 10 Ways to Have Better Conversations with Celeste Headley is one of our well-being series lectures. It'll be over Zoom, and that is on April 23rd. And so you can register. You can find that on the homepage of our website, has all those links. Also, we have a number of resources available on our website just for kind of coping with COVID-19 and all the changes that brings. And so that's at csh.umn.edu/COVID-19. Again, that's also on our homepage. And yeah, and that's basically, we have a lot of webinars coming up, which you can also find on our website, and those are free for everyone. And just make sure to stay connected with us on social, and we'll be updating you about all that stuff. So thank you, everyone, for